Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, let's talk about managers. You ever stop and think, what do they really do all day? It's a huge job, right? And honestly, it's one of the most misunderstood roles out there. So today, we're going to peel back the curtain and really get into what it means to be a modern manager.
Right. So what is a manager? We throw around words like boss, supervisor, leader, but what's the actual job description? I can tell you it's a whole lot more than just telling people what to do and sitting in meetings all day. It's a super complex role, and if you can wrap your head around it, you'll really start to see how great companies actually work.
So to get to the bottom of this, let's start with a solid definition. Who is this person we call the manager?
Okay, that's the textbook answer. But what does it mean in plain English? It really boils down to this. A manager's main job is to coordinate all the resources, we're talking people, equipment, budget, you name it, to help their team hit its goals. The bottom line is, they are responsible for the work that other people do. It's a huge responsibility.
All right, so now that we know what a manager is, let's look at where they fit in, because it's not like all managers are the same. Most companies have a pretty clear structure.
And you've probably seen this before, right? The classic management pyramid. It's a really simple way to see how it all works. You've got 3 basic levels, and each one has a totally different job to do.
So right at the top of that pyramid, you've got the top-level managers. These are the strategists. We're talking about your CEOs, your presidents, the big decision makers. They're not worried about the day-to-day stuff. Nope, their job is to look at the big picture, thinking years ahead about the company's direction and how it fits into the wider world.
Then, in the middle, you have your middle managers. These are folks like department heads, and their job is absolutely critical. They're the translators, the link in the chain. They take that big, high-level strategy from the top and turn it into actual, concrete plans that their teams can work on. And finally, at the foundation of the pyramid, you've got your frontline managers. Think team leads, supervisors. These are the people on the ground, in the trenches. They're the ones managing the day-to-day work of the employees who are actually making the product or talking to the customers. Super important.
Okay, so what this all shows is that being a manager isn't just one job. It's like a dozen jobs rolled into one. They have to wear a ton of different hats, depending on what's going on that day.
And this idea of wearing different hats, a researcher named Henry Mintzberg actually made it his whole thing. He literally followed managers around to see what they really do, and he came up with this brilliant framework, 10 specific roles that all managers play, which he grouped into 3 big categories.
First up, you've got the interpersonal roles. This is all about people, right? It's the human side of the job. You've got the figurehead, that's when they're doing ceremonial stuff like handing out an award. Then there's leader, that's the motivating and coaching part, and liaison, which is all about building a network inside and outside the company.
Next are the informational roles. Think of the manager as the team's nerve center. They're the monitor, constantly scanning for useful information. They're the disseminator, passing that key info along to their team, and they're the spokesperson, representing their team to everyone else.
And finally, we've got the decisional roles. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's about making choices and taking action. They act as an entrepreneur, starting new projects. They're a disturbance handler when things go wrong, putting out fires. They're the resource allocator, deciding who gets the budget and the time. And they're a negotiator, making deals and resolving conflicts. Phew, it's a lot.
So, to be good at wearing all those hats, you've got to have the right skills, right? It pretty much boils down to 3 essential types: conceptual, human, and technical. Let's break those down.
First, conceptual skills. You know the saying, can't see the forest for the trees? Well, this is the opposite. It's the ability to zoom out and see the whole forest, to understand how your team, your department, everything fits into the bigger picture. This is huge for those top-level managers we talked about. Then you have human skills, or, people skills. This is pretty straightforward. Can you communicate well? Can you lead a team? Can you motivate people when things get tough? And here's the kicker. This skill is non-negotiable. It's just as important for a frontline supervisor as it is for the CEO. And last but not least, technical skills. This just means knowing your stuff. If you're managing a team of accountants, you'd better understand accounting. If you're managing software developers, you need to know the tech. These skills are mission critical for those frontline managers who are right there with the people doing the work. Okay, so all these ideas about roles and skills and pyramids, where did they come from? They didn't just appear out of nowhere. There's actually a fascinating history here, a whole evolution of how people have thought about management over the last 100 years or so.
I mean, just think about the shift. We went from a world where managers stood over workers with stopwatches on an assembly line to today, where we talk about empowerment, team building, and being customer-obsessed. How did we make that jump? It's a really cool story.
This timeline kind of lays out the big turning points. We started with this laser focus on making every single task as efficient as possible. Then we zoomed out to think about the whole organization. After that, the focus shifted inward to the people. And finally, it shifted outward to the customer. And what's cool is that each new idea was kind of a reaction to the last one.
So the whole thing really kicks off with this guy, Frederick W. Taylor. He was obsessed with efficiency. He looked at workplaces and just saw waste everywhere. So he came up with this idea he called scientific management. His goal was to use science to find the single, absolute, one best way to do any job. For its time, this was a mind-blowing idea.
And this slide really captures the next massive aha moment. The conversation completely shifted. We went from looking at the job to looking at the people. This new way of thinking, called organizational behavior, was all about recognizing that, hey, workers aren't just parts in a machine, they're actual human beings who talk to each other, who have feelings, and getting them to cooperate is the real key to success.
Okay, then we get to the 1950s, and a whole new philosophy takes over, thanks to thinkers like W. Edwards Deming. It was called Total Quality Management, or TQM. And the big idea was this: stop obsessing over just being efficient inside the factory. The real goal is making the customer happy. And here's the wild part of the story. Deming was American, but it was Japanese companies that really listened to him first. They used his ideas to totally transform their manufacturing, which is a huge reason they became known for incredible quality.
So, you might be thinking, okay, interesting history lesson, but why should I care about this today? Well, it's because you can't understand where you're going if you don't know where you've been. All of this history is the foundation for modern management.
Which brings us to right now. We live in this crazy world of AI, remote work, and just constant change. So what's the lesson? The challenges are brand new for sure, but the basic ideas are still there. Is the future about finding the one best way to use AI, like Taylor did with manual labor? Or is it all about those human skills? You know, figuring out how to lead a team that's spread all over the world? I think the big takeaway is that there's no single answer. The best managers today are a mix of everything we've talked about. They have to be part scientist, part psychologist, and part strategist, always taking the lessons from the past and applying them to the problems of tomorrow.